53 of the CanadaFootballChat.com Recruiting Masters podcast, brought to you by the CFC Insider. We're Katie and Clint, and you're listening to the number one place for all your football recruiting and prospect news across Canada. If you're listening to the show for the very first time, we're glad you're with us. We've got Quincy Forde here, who does all of our NCAA news. It's pretty exciting stuff, Quincy, being able to watch college football again, isn't it?
Yes, it's definitely something I like doing on the weekends.
I know, we don't have to watch any other boring sports. I mean,
I didn't even know basketball was still going.
Aren't they in the finals right now?
I think it's game 5 tonight.
I didn't even realize that the Stanley Cup had been won until I saw the winning team, which I don't recall right now, hoisting the cup in
Wasn't it the Lightning?
Yes, it was.
The hoisting the cup in one of the owners' boxes at the Tampa Bay game. But yeah, sports. College football is way better.
It's way better.
Yes.
NFL, I'll take whatever I can right now.
Don't tweet us. It's super fun, and I know, Quincy, you've got a few guys we're going to talk about today. So let's get right into it. We've got on our current CFC40 list, which is coming out with the new edition shortly. We have Josh Palmer. We have him at number 8. He's a wide receiver, 6'2", 210 pounds. He's out of Brampton native, going to Tennessee. He was I was looking at on his biography or on the website. Did you know that he was the SEC Fall Academic Honor Roll?
I actually did not know that. I probably seen it in coming across his profile, but I just didn't think anything of it, I guess. It seems like a lot of the Canadian guys end up on honor roll, actually. I don't know if it's just our country's got the high IQs going around. It seems like a lot of the Canadians are on honor roll, because I'm pretty sure a couple names we're going to be talking about today are on it.
Well, their days are structured. They're into the whole theme of the person development. I'm pretty sure nowadays, because of the way the scholarships work and how they can basically pull the scholarships back if kids are flunking out and or quitting or transferring. I'm not sure how that works now with the portal. Yeah, those kids, their days are completely structured from class and then the study hall, and then they're probably not in class, to be quite honest with you, in the afternoon. It's probably following lunch, all football, and then study hall at night for an hour or two. Structure will do wonders for an athlete.
Let's talk about him. How did he do this weekend?
Josh Palmer, so far this year, he's averaging 78 yards receiving per game, so he's definitely stepped up his production this year. He seems to be Tennessee's number one target this year, which is an upgrade from the past few years where he's been their wide receiver 3 in an offense where their number 1 and number 2 receivers are both now in the NFL, Jawan Jennings, and I don't know if it's Marquez Callaway. These two guys are both NFL guys, so they were ahead of him in the pecking order of that offense. But now he's stepped up into that number 1 receiver role, and he's certainly producing so far.
Where do you see him going?
I think that he'll probably be a late round NFL guy, like day 3 type guy, and obviously that would affect his CFL stock. It's always kind of weird predicting where NFL guys will go in the CFL draft, because it always depends. Chase Claypool wasn't even picked in the CFL draft because he was such an NFL lock, but then some guys still get picked in later rounds in the CFL draft. Seems like Josh Palmer is a day 3 NFL guy, so who knows what that'll do for his CFL stock, but otherwise he'd probably be a first rounder up here.
Well, and you and I were talking earlier, and you were saying that with the COVID and the eligibility rule, that every kid gets their year back. Wasn't that what you were saying? And that it just really throws a wrench into the whole draft altogether.
Yeah, it kind of throws us off with draft rankings and whatnot, because even if you do play this year, you maintain a year of eligibility. So it's theoretically every senior could still go back, but you don't know if they're going to or not.
What do you remember about Josh Palmer, Clint?
He was the 100 list is 5 years old now? 6 years old? He was the first Canadian kid. There was prospects before him, I think Neville Gallimore was 2 years ahead of him, or maybe 1 year. But he was the first kid who was from Canada who got the SEC. Back in the day, kids would get offers and you'd be oh, that's awesome. And then all of a sudden, he was the first Canadian kid that multiple SEC schools offered. He was the prelude to John Mechie, but honestly, Mechie might be a little bit better. Anyways, not to take away from what this guy's doing. If he's the number 1 option, at an SEC school, and he's looking to get drafted. But he was like the first one that really jumped off our list. There was multiple SEC schools offering him, and that took a whole lot of people by surprise. So the fact that I saw him play, I think, in the OVFL back in the day, and you were just like, why is he in Canada? Because I mean, obviously he's grown and filled out at 6'2", 210, that's pretty impressive if you think about it. Well, when I watched him play in the OVFL, he was just, you could tell he didn't belong there. That's kind of my impression of him. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't watched a Tennessee Volunteers football game in probably, forever. So, but
that's why we have Quincy.
Yeah, well, I don't even think if we get Tennessee games very often.
I don't.
We might this year
we
because
just get the highlights.
Yeah, there's nothing. Well, there's fewer games, so you might get one this year, but it would be cool to see him play, especially if he's the number one option. I don't know what they have at quarterback there, but that would be cool to see. There's a lot of Canadians who are playing important roles on a variety of different teams, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. But I know you mentioned his OPFL stint, and I know he was a St. Roch kid in Brampton. He went there for his first 3 years of high school, and for his last year, he made the move to US, as he could have earlier, as you said. But he went to St. Thomas Aquinas in Florida, which is a top 25 school every year in the States. So he went there, and that's a big deal, a guy at a school like that.
The next prospect is Jesse Luketa. We had him as our number one prospect on the CFC 100 in 2018. He's a linebacker out of Ottawa, one of those kids in the hotbed of Ottawa. He's 6'3", 241 pounds, goes to Penn State. Is one of the top linebacker prospects coming out of Canada in the last decade, we think. Quincy, what's your take on him?
So he's definitely he's an energy guy on the field for sure. Like if you watch his highlights and film of him playing, if he'll make a hit, he'll get fired up, and he's one of those guys who makes the guys around him better with his energy he brings to the field. On the field, he's a big time hitter, great tackler. He's not the fastest. He's extremely aggressive, and his closing speed really makes his actual speed irrelevant with how fast he plays the game, as opposed to testing numbers, because that's really what it's all about. This year, he will step into a starting role at linebacker for Penn State, with Micah Parsons opting out. This Micah Parsons guy is supposed to be the best linebacker prospect coming into the NFL in some time, I think, like possibly a top 5 pick. He's opting out, so that allows Jesse Lucetta to step in and fill in the starting role at LBU at Penn State. And I know last year he was their 4th linebacker, so like he came in. They have their guys kind of learn every linebacker position there. Last year as their 4th linebacker, he had 24 tackles and 4 pass breakups, but he's also a big special teams guy, so he can do it all.
And he went to Mercyhurst Prep in Pennsylvania, didn't he?
He did.
Where did he go in Canada?
I don't even know if he did. The way it kind of works, I think, with the Gridiron Academy, I think it's different with them. I think they have like a different stream, or they do their school prior to leaving for their journey in the States a little differently. I think most of them attend like an alternative school prior to that, and they train with this guy, and then he kind of helps them get interest at prep schools, and then they take off. So I don't know. He would have played community, and I'm assuming it probably would have been the Sooners or the Panthers, the Cumberland Panthers, or something like that prior to going. But I remember watching him in high school. Not in high school when he was, it's high school, but prep school. He was unbelievable. And Quincy's bang on. His closing speed, so from the point where he actually pulls the trigger to the point where he completely obliterates somebody, is like really fast. And I think if you watch some of those Penn State hype films in the offseason, he's an absolute beast in the weight room. The one thing that always will probably hang over him, and Quincy's already said it, is when he was like a 4-star recruit and had tons of offers, and for whatever reason, which wasn't a good reason, he went to the Nike opening, I think in New York, and ran a 5 flat. And he had already committed to Penn State, and people went berserk online. And it was, I think at that point, it became a little more obvious that he was never going to be like a 4.6, 4.7 guy. So I would be really curious if he actually gets an opportunity to go to an NFL Combine to see what his 40 is, because I bet you it's not going to be anything sub 4.7. And those kind of numbers, if he becomes like a all-conference linebacker at Penn State, which is that's kind of the deal, that number of 5 flat will hang over him until he goes to the NFL Combine and runs another 40-yard dash and Obviously, that would be a lot faster. Quincy's bang on with him. He was a stud in high school, though. Like, he didn't hit people. He would hit people and they would stay hit, if that makes any sense. That was him. That's all I remember him. And he was a great kid early on when he was getting recruited, remember?
Yeah.
We were talking to him, we weren't talking to him. You were talking to him. Imagine when you're, like, come out of Ottawa and things aren't that settled at home. And then all of a sudden you're at a prep school where you don't have to worry about little things. And then all of a sudden within a calendar year, Ole Miss and Mississippi State and LSU are starting to offer you opportunities. I mean, I can only imagine how those kids, and then you wonder why they all become academic All-Americans.
I was looking at his offers earlier today coming out of high school, and he had every single big-time school except Clemson. I saw Auburn, Georgia, LSU, Ohio State, Oklahoma.
Well, I know that he had, did he have 30 or 35 offers?
He had 31.
Yeah, he was a great player. I enjoyed talking to him. The next player that we have is Luigi Vilain. We have him on the current list at number 22 on our CFC40 NCAA ranking. He's a defensive lineman, 6'4", 253 pounds, also out of Ottawa. Went to Episcopal, did he not, in Virginia?
Yes, he did. Common Canadian hotspot.
I mean, he's at Michigan now, but he was one of the more athletic defensive ends that we've seen. And he's spent his time in at Michigan. It'll be interesting to see what he does for the rest of the season. What's your take on Luigi?
Yes, he's an interesting one because he, coming into Michigan, his first year there, he had a surgery on one of his knees and missed the whole season, the freshman. And then his second year, he had a surgery on his other knee and missed the whole season. So 2 successive seasons, surgery on each knee, missed the first 2 years. So for whatever reason, he's still listed as a senior for this year. Like it appears he didn't redshirt despite missing the whole season. He's listed as a senior now despite missing his first 2 years. And last year, for all intents and purposes, was his first year really actually playing. He was a rotation guy who will definitely get a bigger role this year in the rotation. He had 7 tackles, a sack, and a forced fumble last year in 7 games played. He hasn't seen the field too much, but that's probably going to change a little this year, and his role will increase, and I guess we'll see then.
His younger brother is coming up as well. Is it Alex?
Alex, yeah, he's down south. I remember Luigi, if you watch highlight film from Episcopal, he was unbelievable. His takeoff was crazy. And he had like insane testing numbers. He went to all those things with Victor Tundondo and like put up ridiculous 40-yard dash. All the other things he did extremely well. And then when he went to Episcopal and he had this amazing film to go along with the amazing numbers. And as you can see from the measurables, Kafik sits at around 6'4", 260, 265 with regards to like a pass rushing defensive end or an outside linebacker in a 30. It would be interesting to see for sure. I remember watching him and Jonathan Sutherland, the safety from Penn State. They absolutely obliterated people at Episcopal that year. Watch Jonathan Sutherland's Episcopal highlight film. I thought Ed Reed had been reincarnated. So that's my idea on Luigi, just a really athletic defensive lineman who has just got completely stung by the injury bug. It'll be curious to see what he does in Don Brown's vaunted defenses at Michigan.
Quincy, what do you think about with him having those 2 years of injuries? How much do you think that plays into his draft stock?
I think that kind of leaves it up to his performance this year, really. I'd still say, as a preliminary statement, fully guessing how he performs, I don't know, like a top 25, 30 guy, probably, just because he has the ceiling, as you said. He was a big-time guy coming out of high school, like one of the biggest Canadian recruits over, like, the past decade, at, like, number 2 on the CFC 100 at his time, and big-time athlete, so he's clearly athletic. So it seems like a high ceiling guy, and I don't know, like I guess that's a hard one because it's all kind of left to how he does this year. I definitely still think it's not like he has an empty gas tank. I still think he's definitely someone who can make an impact on the field.
We'll be curious to see how he does. We'll keep our eye on him for sure. The next prospect is Dominic Johnson. He's another senior. We have him ranked at number 25 on the CFC40. Receiver, 6'5", 220 pounds, out of Windsor, Ontario. Went to Catholic Central. At Buffalo, is this, correct me if I'm wrong, is this not the older brother of Theo Johnson? And did he not go to Buffalo as a quarterback?
He had it. Those statements are both correct. He was a quarterback coming out of Catholic Central in Windsor, and his only offer was from Buffalo, I believe. He made the move from quarterback to wide receiver for the 2019 season, and he only had 6 catches for 46 yards. He was like their 5th receiver or something in an offense that I don't think is particularly pass heavy at all. I think most of the draw with him and why he still is generally probably looked at as a top 30 guy still for next year's CFL draft. He's kind of like what I said about Vilain. It depends on his performance this year. But the interesting thing with Johnson is at 6'5", 220 as a receiver, that's, first of all, his frame is very intriguing, but he's been a walk-on on the men's basketball team since his freshman year. Like, he's on the UB basketball team. The fact that he's 6'5", 220 and can play 2 sports at the Division I level, that just speaks to his athleticism, and with his frame, like, you got to think there's definitely time to turn him into something.
Well, and just dedication too, like 2 sports.
Well, think about how many people do that nowadays. Not a lot.
And then our last one is Alaric Jackson. He's an offensive tackle, 6'6", 315 pounds, out of Windsor, Ontario. Goes to Iowa. He's had a decorated career. If you go on his roster page, there is a lot of accolades. There's a lot of accolades on there. But he would probably be one of the more decorated offensive linemen with a Canadian passport, you think?
Oh, yeah, for sure, because he's probably going to be a no later than 4th round NFL pick next year, is my guess. Who knows what that does for his CFL stock yet again. He's definitely an NFL guy for next year.
Well, he was a freshman All-American, right?
Yes, he was a freshman All-American. He started as a freshman at left tackle for Iowa, so had the QB's blind side covered there. In 2018, he was 2nd team All-Big Ten. And in 2019, he took a step back, I guess you could say, was 3rd team All-Big Ten. But he was injured for part of the 2019 season and played hurt through the rest of the season. So that's kind of why he wasn't quite as good 2019 as he was in 18, because he was battling injury and missed the first couple games, if I'm not mistaken. But it's just funny because I look back at the All Big Ten teams a while ago. I believe in 2018, Alaric Jackson was 2nd team All Big Ten, while Tristan Wirfs, who was a 1st round NFL pick this past year, who was the right tackle at Iowa, was an honorable mention All Big Ten. It kind of seems like Alaric Jackson was the bigger deal of the two. Until this year, where Wirfs had a bigger year and Jackson took a step back with his injury, and Wirfs was 1st team All Big Ten, Jackson was 3rd team All Big Ten. But that's definitely makes for one of the best offensive lines in college football, definitely the best tackle duo last year.
Do you remember watching him play?
You wouldn't have seen him play. He's your typical passport Canadian.
Well, he was born in Windsor, but he grew up in Detroit, I think.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that when we put him on the list last year, yeah, Quincy was your dad who actually, he's the one who was onto him first.
Yes, so, I believe it was my dad who brought it up that this guy was a Canadian guy. Him and Javon Holland are the 2 guys who are big deals, who it like kind of took a while to pick up on their Canadian heritage. But Javon Holland's more Canadian than Jackson, I guess you could say, because Holland was here. He didn't move until he was 8. I think Jackson moved before the age of 3. Although I think based off seeing articles about him, it seemed like he was kind of back and forth across the border, a decent bit through his childhood. He definitely cares about his Canadian heritage. He was talking about how his favorite artist was Drake, and because he's a Canadian guy and whatnot. He has his Canadian ties, and he takes pride in that, it seems.
See if he can rally back and have a comeback year.
Yeah, every single media outlets, they all post their preseason all-conference teams and preseason All-Americans. Alaric Jackson seems to be a consensus preseason All-American. Pretty much every site I see has him preseason All-American. I think one had him 1st team, one 2nd team, one 3rd teams. Obviously, it doesn't really matter until he performs this year, but that's some high praise.
Well, and if he's a competitor, I'm pretty sure coming out of last year, he's going to be like, okay, the guy that went in the 1st round of Tampa Bay, I'm better than he is. So I'm pretty sure that's going to light a fire in it. And if he has any sort of character and just competitiveness, I bet you he'll hit those expectations that you just spoke of. Let's be honest. what's the hardest thing to recruit, to draft is bona fide. Everybody's dying for linemen all the time. That's right in his wheelhouse. I'm thinking he won't even get drafted into the CFL because I'm pretty sure if he has that many accolades going into this year, and if he had an average year and then went to the NFL Combine and had solid numbers, he's still going to go. Just a matter of how high he goes. That's unfortunate when a guy gets stuck with his own competitiveness playing through injuries and it actually takes away from his performance, and then you just are stuck with dealing with it while other people make assumptions and such. He was my favorite player to watch last year. Once he was pointed out to me, I was just like, wow, look at that guy. And then I was playing opposite of the first rounder, and he's the left guy and the other guy was the right guy. The sky's the limit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, 6'6", 315. He has a good frame, long arms, quick first step. The only thing I can say I'd like to see is I'd like to see him bend his knees a little more, but that's probably the first thing I notice. Well, not the first thing I notice, but like the first thing I notice he has to improve. He's definitely a pretty good offensive lineman, to say the least.
Well, he checks all the boxes, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So like length and height and weight. And let's be honest, he played in the Big Ten. That'll win him some points. And people will have the easy comparison of Wirfs playing opposite of him. So he's got a lot of good stuff. And Iowa's had a lot of linemen and tight ends drafted over the last couple of years. So that's also going for him.
Yeah, it seems Iowa and Wisconsin are like two teams that tend to be like two like consistent top 25 teams that are known for their O-line production. Those seem like schools that are kind of carried by their offensive line perennially. But I guess Wisconsin had a good running back last year. Pretty.
They also have a good running back. Just like Iowa always has the tight ends. Like Iowa's like tight end view. Well, maybe Miami, but Iowa's kind of up there in recent years.
Those are all good prospects. It just blows my mind to see that there's quite a few. There's more and more really, really talented Canadians playing in the NCAA.
That keeps going up, but I think there's kids who are training harder now. There's programs in Canada, however, not enough of them, that have stepped up, so they've become legitimate programs, so they're prepping the kids, and then the youth sports has stepped up, and then the kids, people will bash on it, but like going down to play football in the States is a huge, for some of those kids, it turns into it propels them forward. And I don't want to pump the tires of our lists, but that's also played a role as well. Yeah, there's always been athletes. I wonder if we've stole the athletes away from hockey. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Hockey may stay number one for a while in this country. I don't know. I gotta say, I like my two sports are hockey and football. I love them both. I have room for both of them in my heart. So.
No, you can't have room for two.
No. Get off the fence.
Well, the rankings that we've been talking about throughout are on CanadaFootballChat.com, and you can view all of the rankings, the CFC 100, the 150, the 200, as well as the CFC 40s that we've been talking about here, the NCAA prospects, as well as the U Sport prospects. This year, we're combining the two just because of the COVID situation. They will all be mixed in together. So that will be really interesting to see how that shapes out.
Yep.
And then the CFC 60, which is the CEGEP and the junior college ranking, and the CFC 10 kicker or specialist ranking, which we will be updating here, hopefully in the near future. So you can get that on CanadaFootballChat.com with your gold membership. And don't forget to follow us on our Facebook, Twitter @ChatFootball, Instagram CFC_football, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And don't forget to check out our digital store. We've got lots of great resources on there. And one last thing, we're really excited because we are going to be, we've launched our Recruiting Academy certificate course, which will be open for registration here very shortly. So you want to check that out because it's a 4-week course that you're going to get a lot of great information from the experts at CFC. So keep your eyes open for that. Quincy, thanks for joining us again, as always.
Glad I could join you guys. Always fun.
Looking for more exclusive Canadian recruiting content? Become a CFC Insider Gold or Silver member today for access to rankings, analysis, and the latest recruiting news from across the country.